Hey everyone, I'm Marianna and I am back with the last Game of Thrones episode review of season 7. Don't worry, I will do a full review of the entire season, but as far as episode reviews go for this season, this is obviously the last one. Of course, this is going to be a spoiler discussion, so make sure you're caught up on the show before watching this video, and let's talk about Game of Thrones season 7, episode 7, The Dragon and the Wolf. Right away, I just have to say that I am so happy they pulled it together for the finale. If you've seen my previous video, you know I've had some serious concerns after episode 6, but this was just great. I loved the finale. I thought this was night and day. There are very few nitpicks that I have with the episode, and that's why I couldn't really do my best and worst format that you guys liked so much last time, because I would just be looking for things to nitpick just to fill the worst part of the list, and I obviously didn't want to do that. So I asked you guys on Twitter if you wanted me to do just a list of best things about the episode, or if you wanted me to do my regular recap and review, which most of you voted for that. And if you missed the poll, you should probably follow me on Twitter, but I will do a best and worst of the entire season 7, so don't worry. But for now, let's discuss The Dragon and the Wolf. The episode opens with Grey Worm and the Unsullied at the walls of King's Landing. Bronn, Jaime, and the Lannister army are reasonably nervous about this. Then the Dothraki show up, which Jaime and Bronn have personally seen in action, so that's fun for them. Jaime definitely looked like he remembers what that's like. Everyone is coming to King's Landing for a meeting with Cersei to negotiate a truce. We also get some background on the Dragon Pit from Ser Jorah and Tyrion, explaining why it was built to Missandei on their way to the meeting, and they are greeted by Bronn, Brienne, Pod, and some Lannister people. It was so great to see all of these characters brought together on screen. We got some interactions between characters that haven't seen each other in a while, and also actually some first interactions between characters that we've never seen on screen together, so that was a lot of fun. We got a quick Tyrion and Pod reunion. Brienne and the Hound have a few words about Arya. The Hound is of course happy to hear that Arya is okay. Bronn and Tyrion have a quick chance to catch up. Those two always have some good back and forth. Brienne and Jaime, I am so happy to see them on screen together again, and something tells me this isn't the last time they get to interact. We have some sibling reunions as well. There is that deadly first look between Cersei and Tyrion. Of course, they have a scene together later, and we'll talk about that. Euron and Theon haven't seen each other since the attack earlier this season. The Hound gets right up in his brother's face because HBO really likes teasing that Clegane Bowl. It's happening at some point next season. They have been building the tension between the two brothers since season 1, so it just has to come to some sort of standoff between the two, and I will be surprised if it doesn't. Daenerys, of course, has to make a dramatic entrance on Drogon. Who wouldn't? I would also be fashionably late if I arrived on a dragon so everybody could see. But Cersei tries to look as unfazed as she can because she has just the best poker face. Once everyone is there, Euron just has to jump in and be a dick to Theon and to Tyrion, but I loved Jaime and Cersei telling him to sit the hell down. I have been waiting for someone to shut him up this entire season, so this definitely made me very happy. And they pretty much get right into the White demonstration. The Hound brings out the box with the captured White. The thing launches at Cersei. Everyone is in shock. Euron says this is the first thing he's seen that terrifies him, and since whites can't swim, he's going back to the Iron Islands to wait this one out. I think my favorite here was Qyburn though. While everyone is freaking out, he just can't help being morbidly fascinated by the severed arm that's still moving for some reason. So after this, Cersei accepts the truce on the condition that the king and the North will remain in the North, not take up arms against Lannisters, and not choose sides, but Jon just has to make things complicated because he can't lie, even for the greater good. So he says that he pledged himself to Daenerys already, and nobody is happy about this because now the truce is off, and even Daenerys is kind of mad at him. This obviously fits his character, so I'm not really complaining about it, and as soon as Cersei said that she wants him to remain neutral, I just knew he was going to declare his allegiance to Daenerys in front of everyone, but knowing this didn't really make it any less frustrating to watch. Jon's Stark side is just too strong. So Tyrion now has to try to fix this and goes to talk to Cersei. That scene between the two of them is probably my favorite scene of this entire episode. Tyrion says he doesn't want to destroy his family, Cersei won't hear it. Tyrion challenges her to give the order to execute him, but Cersei cannot do this. I loved all of it. Great dialogue, great tension, and great acting. This is the Game of Thrones that I love. What's interesting is that we don't see the end of that conversation. Tyrion comes back, and shortly after that, Cersei comes out and says she will march her armies north to help. This was weird. I felt something was off about this, and as we find out later, she flat out lied. But because we didn't see the end of their conversation, I wonder if there's more to it. Maybe Tyrion promised her something, maybe they agreed upon something, because when he finds out that she's pregnant, the scene just randomly cuts away to Jon and Daenerys, which I thought was interesting. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I feel like there's something that was left off screen, so let me know if any of you had the same feeling. Later, Jaime is making plans and preparing the expedition north, and this is where we find out that Cersei lied. She wants to let Daenerys and Jon defend the north while she takes the lands back and reinforces her army with the Golden Company. She also says that Euron is actually sailing to Essos to bring the Golden Company to Westeros, and Jaime is really taken aback by this because Cersei conspired with Euron behind his back despite him being the commander of her armies. Jaime tries to bring up that he pledged to ride north, so he intends to do so, but Cersei threatens to have him killed if he tries to leave. Jaime calls her bluff though and walks away. She couldn't execute Tyrion on the spot, so she is definitely not going to execute Jaime on the spot. But guys, we have to take a moment because Jaime finally leaves. If you've heard me talk about Jaime before, you know how frustrated I've been with this character because I've been waiting for him to move on for quite some time now, just like he did in the books. I am so glad this finally happened on the show. We've seen him continuously horrified, particularly in this episode, by Cersei's words, by her rudeness, by the situation that they're in, and this finally was too much for him. I am so happy about this character development right now. He is going to need Brienne's support now more than ever because by himself, without an army, I don't think he's going to get a warm welcome in the North. Not like they were going to like him in the first place, even if he showed up with the army, but in this particular situation, he is alone and he has nothing to offer them outside of himself, so that's going to be interesting. Even though we saw him leave alone, I wonder if Bronn is going to join him. I hope he does, but yeah, very exciting and long-awaited development. Also, as he's riding north, it starts snowing in King's Landing. We see some beautiful shots of winter officially arriving in the south. This is also something I've been waiting to see for a while now because we do get snow at King's Landing in the books, so I've been wondering why they've been holding off on this, but yeah, this looked stunning. Before I leave King's Landing alone, I just quickly want to acknowledge Lena Headey's acting. She is always great, easily one of the most talented people on the show, but this episode, she was exceptional. And next season, I think Cersei is just going to descend into further madness, which is going to be fascinating to watch. At Winterfell, Sansa finally gets word from Jon, who tells her he bent the knee to Daenerys Targaryen, and she's discussing this with Peter Baelish, who suggests Jon wants to marry Daenerys. At this point, he's not wrong. However, they quickly switch to discussing Arya, and here Baelish overplays his hand. He teaches Sansa another one of his games where she is to consider the worst explanation possible for what the person is doing, and he thinks he is guiding her to completely turn against her sister, but in reality, this is where Sansa realizes that this cannot be right, because Arya never wanted to be the Lady of Winterfell, so this explanation really doesn't fit. Later, we see Sansa bring Arya to the Great Hall. She gives a list of accusations, and while it may look like she's talking to Arya, she asks Baelish how he answers to her charges, and the look on his face is priceless. Bran also comes in useful as he confirms things while Baelish tries to deny betraying Ned. Basically, this ends in Arya executing Baelish on the spot after Sansa throws all his games and lessons back at him. Now, you guys probably know that Baelish used to be my favorite character on the show before they completely ruined him. He went from being an epic master planner to making one silly mistake after another. So if this situation happened in earlier seasons, I would have been pretty upset. However, since the show messed up his character pretty badly, this ended up being a great moment for Sansa, and it was good to finally see her step up. Also, Aidan Gillen played this scene so well, even though falling apart, crying, and begging isn't really something that fits old school Baelish. Within the context of this episode and this season in general, this ended up being a really good scene. And I am so glad this nonsense Winterfell drama is over. It still doesn't explain Arya's behavior from previous episodes, but whatever, I'm just glad we're past this. I know people are going to try to say that Arya and Sansa have been playing Baelish all along, but there is no indication that that's the case. If anything, this episode clearly shows that Sansa just now realized the truth about Baelish, and somewhere between the first scene this episode at Winterfell when she's learning the game and the scene at the Great Hall is when she actually conspires with Bran and Arya. So this makes much more sense than some kind of conspiracy that's been happening off screen for half a season when most of the fighting between the sisters happened with nobody around unless Baelish was hiding under the bed. Anyways, I am glad we're done with this, and I am looking forward to Jon coming home, which he is headed to Winterfell with Daenerys. That's going to be interesting, and finally reuniting with Arya and Bran. Also at Winterfell, Sam and Gilly arrive. Sam comes in to talk to Bran, who seems less out of it in this scene. I'm proud of him. And some of this was pretty funny, but the main thing here is that we get a final confirmation about Rhaegar and Lyanna being Jon's parents, as well as about him actually being a true-born Targaryen and the heir to the Iron Throne. I do have questions about his name, since apparently his real name is Aegon, and at that point Rhaegar already had a son named Aegon, so I'm not sure what happened there, whether Lyanna was just being difficult or it's just an oversight from the writers. I'm not sure. And even if they're trying to merge Jon with a certain thing from the books, it still doesn't really make a lot of sense unless I'm missing something. We do get a flashback to Rhaegar and Lyanna's wedding, and as Bran is narrating Jon's lineage, the boat sex happens. Yup. can't wait for those two to hear the news, especially since most of us are pretty sure at this point that she's going to get pregnant, because why else bring up her inability to have children over and over again? It's going to be pretty ironic though, because after all of this talk about breaking the wheel, she's going to keep it in the family, just like her ancestors. Tyrion is actually watching this romance unfold. We see him creeping around as Jon comes to visit Daenerys. Tyrion definitely looks concerned, most likely because he doesn't want the romance to complicate things, because that always happens. I don't think he's jealous or anything like that, because that would be a really silly love triangle. I don't think they would go for that. Maybe he's jealous from the point of view that he may think Daenerys would potentially listen to Jon over Tyrion, but either way, it will be interesting to see how this develops after the truth about Jon's, or I guess Aegon's, parents comes out. There is a scene at Dragonstone earlier in the episode between Theon and Jon, which kind of foreshadows the parentage dilemma when Jon tells Theon that he doesn't have to pick a family. He's a Stark and a Greyjoy, so he should embrace both. This advice will definitely have to apply to Jon himself very soon. And speaking of this scene, this ended up being surprisingly good. I was never a fan of Theon to begin with, but I thought this was a great episode for his character, setting him up for a second chance at redemption. He is forgiven by Jon and reminded that it's not too late to make the right choice. He knows he needs to try to rescue Yara because that's what she did for him, even though she didn't have a lot of support. And after fighting his way to being a leader of the group of remaining Ironborn, he is ready to do the right thing. Very symbolic also when he washes his face with seawater. Last, but definitely not least, Bran sees the wall come down. The Night King shows up on his new undead dragon, brings down a portion of the wall, and the army of the dead passes through, which was a great way to end the episode. I'm not going to question the logistics of that blue fire or how this dragon can even fly with holes in his wings. He is reanimated by magic. I don't think we need to worry about it in this particular situation because, you know, magic. Also, they kind of tried to cliffhanger us by not showing what happened to Tormund and Beric. There is no way the two of them are dead though, especially not Tormund, because after surviving an army of whites last episode, there is no way they would just kill him off screen like that. No way. I'm not buying it, HBO. So that's it for the season 7 finale. As I mentioned, I loved the episode. I am so glad they brought it all together and they didn't fall apart after that questionable episode 6. I am very hopeful for season 8. I just hope they take their time with it. I don't want them to rush it. I would rather wait longer and get a better season because maybe they need to tweak something. I don't know. I really am curious where they're going to take the rest of the show. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will definitely be doing more Game of Thrones videos in the future, but let's talk about the episode in the comments below. I would love to know your thoughts, and as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!